And today I wanted to talk to you about something, an insight that I had this week. Okay. So, um, that basically what I've realized is I think I'm addicted to having a problem with pornography. I'm, I'm not just addicted to pornography, but I'm addicted to having a problem with pornography, right? And I don't think I'm addicted anymore. I don't like to think of it that way now, but um, we can talk more about the technical use of that word addiction later. But what I've realized is basically I already had a sense that I was habituated to having problems. Okay. Like I recognized this when I was doing therapy that part of my brain just didn't want to change from what it was comfortable with, right? And it's that same part of your brain that goes on autopilot, and it's really efficient and really helps us a lot of the time. But when it comes to change, it makes change slower and harder. And so what I used to do is I used to make that mean something bad about me, especially with my issue with pornography, that if I was slow to change on it, that maybe there was something wrong with me. Anyway, so what I do now with that is I recognize, okay, my brain is meant to resist big changes, and it's doing that for a good reason. And it's part of what's helped humans survive throughout the years, right, of evolution. And I'm going to make it mean that there's something right with me, and I'm just going to work with it and work through that initial resistance when I change something. Okay. So I already knew about this. An example of this is my my daughter's room has bunk beds, and the top bunk folds up. Okay. So it can be up and out of the way against the wall. So we had it down for the first while of living in the apartment that we were living at. And then my other daughter moved into the room, and so we started having that bunk bed folded down. And I must have bumped my head on it like 7 times and really hard over the next few weeks while I was adjusting to it being there. And finally, it sunk in that that bunk bed wasn't going anywhere, and I learned to not bump my head on it. So this is a normal thing with our brains, right? What I realized this week is that on top of that, I think I'm addicted to having the problem with pornography. Okay. And at first I was like, wait, what? Because I've spent so many times wishing I never had this problem, or wishing I had some other problem that wasn't pornography, right? I'm sure a lot of you can relate. So I was confused, but I realized why there was part of me that wanted to have the problem, right? And that is that I realized that I really like imagining how great everything is going to be once I fix my problem, right? And so having that pornography problem put me in a position where I could have this fantasy solution to my problem, where once I fix this, everything is going to get better. And it's all going to be kicks and giggles, and I don't know, something really unrealistic. Okay. And what happened to me, and what happens to a lot of guys, is they remove porn from their life, and they realize it didn't solve all their problems, and so they go back to it, right? And this happened to me when I got really serious about getting help and started involving Lindsay, my wife. I expected all these wonderful things to happen that didn't happen, and I was devastated. I was shocked. And I thought, oh my gosh, I thought all this time, if I fix this, that all these things are going to get better. And they didn't. Okay. And so then I went back to it for a little while and struggled not. And I think part of it's because I liked still hanging on to that idea that once I fix this, it'll all get better, right? So why did I want to have the problem, right? So I already explained part of that, but I think also I didn't used to realize that the full human experience is to have negative emotions and positive emotions, right? I think I understood intellectually um, that having negative emotions is part of the game. But that being said, I think I was okay with negative emotions as long as they were hardly ever and that they happened at a convenient time for me and that I could kind of plan to have it and have it go away really fast, right? Um, but it doesn't work that way. Okay, so and if you think about it, as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, one of our beliefs is that there is opposition in all things, right? Um, so would it make sense to believe that about our emotions too? That's my question, okay? What if the full human experience, when all is said and done, adds up to a ratio of 50-50, right? When it comes to our emotions. So when I first heard this, I thought that that's really oversimplified and also that it shouldn't have to be that much. Really, 50%? Like, does it have to be an equal amount? But I will tell you, the more that I plan on my life being 50-50, positive and negative feelings, the better I handle my emotions and the easier it is to stop looking at pornography. Okay? Because I'm treating the underlying issue, the underlying cause, instead of just the symptoms of looking at pornography. Okay? So 50% of the time, things will work out. 50% of the time, they'll fall apart. Okay? Half the time, you're going to feel lonely. Half the time, you'll feel connected. Half the time, you'll feel self acceptance. Half the time, you'll feel shame. Half worthy, half unworthy. Okay? Um, as you work on this stuff, you can become more intentional about which negative and positive emotions you feel in your life, and you can practice them. But at first, you have to accept that those negative emotions will be there. And even half the time, they'll be there, and be willing to feel them and notice them and identify them for what they are. Okay. So that's where you have to start before you start changing it. A lot of us want to skip and say, well, can I just skip and get the emotions I really want right now? Unfortunately, in my experience, you have to feel what's there first and then process that and shift to something new. Okay. So, all right. So, how does this help me? What are some of the ways this can help me? So if you expected it to be 50-50 now and 50-50 when you've gone 10 or more years without looking at porn and masturbating, then how would that affect you? Just think about that for a second, right? All that willpower that you spend on resisting half your life, you can spend in more useful ways, right? And you can, I'm running out of batteries. Okay, so how does this help you? I had to pause it there because I was running out of computer battery. Um, if you expect it to be 50-50 now, and when you've gone 10 plus years without looking at porn and masturbating, just think how this will affect you, right? First, you take away that incentive for having a problem and the attached fantasy solution that comes with it, right? So you can take that out as a viable option, right? Because when it comes to the human experience, there is no problem with the full human experience. Okay, there's no problem with it being 50-50. The only problem that comes with that is when we resist the negative 50. Okay, and like I said, you can use all that willpower that you've been spending on resisting your negative emotions and that negative part of your life. You can save that and use it for more valuable things because you do have a limited amount of willpower and it depletes. Okay. Um, I'm reading this book about willpower right now, and something I found really interesting is when they look at people that seem to have a lot of control over their life and the people that don't, the people that do have more control over their life are using their willpower a lot less than the people who don't have as much control over their lives, which is kind of interesting to think about. Okay, so you can spend that on better things. And then instead of that fantasy of everything becoming perfect once I fix this, what I decided is I'm going to choose a different option. Okay, I'm going to choose right now over that fantasy, because every second that I spend focusing on that fantasy solution to my problem and how much better things will be once I fix it is a second that I'm not engaged in my life as a human right now in a full enriched way. Okay, and what does that cost me is a question that I ask myself, and I ask you too. So this doesn't mean that I don't want to use that power of visualizing what I can accomplish in the future and what will happen. But when I do that, I'm going to plan on 50-50 now and then at my destination and all the way through. Okay. I'm going to plan on it being part of the deal. Okay. If I want to be a human right now, then 50-50 is part of the deal. And there's no problem with that. There's no problem with having the full human experience. Okay. But a lot of us aren't used to this idea. So just start trying it on. Because if you believe that you are meant to be happy all of the time, and your negative emotion then comes, which it always will, then you'll always look for an escape route when the negative emotion comes. So what I've been telling myself lately is I choose 50-50 over porn, okay? And yes, this means that when it comes down to it, I would rather feel shame, lonely, unworthy, rejected, depressed, anxious, all these things. I would rather feel those than look at porn. And I can breathe my way right through them, because if you tell yourself that you'd rather look at porn than feel these negative feelings, then anytime those negative feelings come up, you're going to want to look at porn. So you actually need to practice telling yourself, no, I choose to feel crappy over looking at porn, right? And that's helped me out a lot. So sometimes right now is a terrible and hard thing. Okay, it just is. But what if that's okay? And what if it doesn't mean anything's gone wrong? What if it actually means something's gone right? If you're not willing to be in your right now, then you will spend time on never-ending problems that you can never solve. Okay? The interesting thing about all this is a lot of times it happens at a subconscious level where you're not even aware of it. But that's the whole point of talking about all of this. The whole point of coaching is you practice awareness of these things going on in your brain. And when you practice that awareness right now in this moment, that's you choosing to be a human in this moment. And that's you choosing to get fully engaged right now. And it's a process, which is okay. So it can be hard. And I would encourage you just to let it be hard, okay? And let mistakes be part of the process. And just like I learned to stop bumping my head on that upper bunk, we can learn how to do this, right? So you can practice that awareness. And when you gain awareness, you gain power to change. But you don't change because of the fantasy that you're hoping will come true, okay? Change because it's simply what you want in your life, with 50-50 now and 50-50 once you've made the change, okay? And then the last thing I would offer is, what if being fully engaged in the 50-50 is actually better than any fantasy that we've ever dreamed of? And that's the question I'm going to be thinking about this week. Thanks, guys. Good luck. Talk to you soon.